Hey guys, OG Albina here, bringing you guys another Draft League tier list video. Yes, they are back, and those of you who are new here, hello, my name is Owen, or OG Albina. I play a lot of Pokemon Draft League, and on YouTube in general, there really isn't a lot of, like, analysts or really discussion content around Draft League and kind of giving people a little bit of guidance on what is good, what's not good, why they're not good, and things of the sort. So I'm going to be doing tier list videos. We're going to do an 8 or a 9-part mini-series. We're going to go through all 9 generations, Generation 1 today. We're going to talk about each of these fully evolved Pokemon in Pokemon Draft League, their viability, how good they are for their relative price point. So not necessarily how high they are on a point scale, but more so how much value do they offer you at their point scale. We'll be talking about that, give my insights and my personal experience with them, and hopefully you guys do enjoy this video. And if you do, you should drop a like on the video as well as subscribe to the channel on our way to 5,000 subs by the end of the year, and I would really appreciate it if you help me out in reaching that goal. Yeah, with that being said, I think it's about time that we jump into it. Again, like I said, we're not going to be ranking, like, if I put, like, Pidgeot in S tier, maybe it's because I think Pidgeot is the best 2-pointer this side of the Mississippi. Does that mean it is an 18-point Pokemon because I have an S tier? No. Obviously, also, Pidgeot's not going to be in, what do you call it? It's not going to be in S tier, but, it's just that kind of idea. Just so you guys know kind of the basis for the rankings and things of the sort. I will also not be doing NFE Pokemon unless they are usable and draftable, so most of them will be left out, and I will not be doing Gmax forms because we don't play that shit here. Alrighty, with that being said, I think we can start with Venusaur, and I think base Venusaur has to be a B tier Pokemon. I think it's really good on specific builds, very, very specific builds, and that's Sun. I don't think base Venusaur is ever worth drafting otherwise. There are some, like, niche defensive applications. Grass and Poison isn't the worst defensive typing. Good Fairy Check. It's also tough having a Grass type that's not resistant to ground when using it defensively, but offensively with Chlorophyll, and especially in a metagame like now where we have Terra offering an option to go Terra Ground or Terra Fire, even like Terra Fairy, get extra coverage and better defensive typing and things like that. It's honestly really, really cool. Really, really fun models on those teams. Really fast Sleep Powder, incredibly strong, when it gets a growth boost behind it. And it just clicks buttons. It really does just click buttons. Really, really fun mod. So, definitely big on regular Venu. I think Mega Venu does have to go in A tier, though. Now, for those of you who have started drafting Generation 9, maybe don't play a lot of Nat decks, I think I should put you on some game with a lot of these Megas, and we'll talk about them as well, even though they aren't in the game right now, just in case they do come back in Pokemon Legends EA and we get some kind of format where we can play with Megas again. Now, Mega Venusaur. What makes it so good? The exact opposite of regular Venusaur, right? You're typically going to play Venu much more offensively in the sun, things like that. Venu is the opposite. It has thick fat, so it loses its weakness to ice and fire, which is great defensively, great addition to it. And it becomes obnoxiously bulky. Like, absolutely insanely bulky. Really, really solid on, like, fatter balance builds, spreading leech seeds and sleep powders, poisoning things with Sludge Bomb and Toxic. Really, really solid Pokemon overall. Absolutely love Mega Venusaur. I mean, look at these stat spreads. Hold on, let's look it up. You're gonna hear me clicking and clacking. 80 base HP with 123 defense and 120 SPDF with barely any weaknesses at all. Psychic, Flying. Trying to think of what else. Psychic, Flying. I'm sure there's another one that I'm forgetting. But regardless, great Pokemon. Really, really solid balance pick. Next up, though, we have regular Charizard. I think this will be low C, high D. Again, a Pokemon that, like, fits on very specific builds. Like, early Paldea Sun, Charizard was pretty strong, especially if your league does, like, low tier Terra. I think it's a cool option there, but there's always just better Sun Pokemon, in my opinion. Really doesn't offer much outside of that. It always feels either very pressured to make you have a phenomenal spinner for a very mediocre to bad Pokemon, or it's always going to be Boots Locked, which is also a little bit tough. There's also just better fire flying types and, like, Talonflame and Moltres, which will be later on down here. So, yeah, a little bit more mediocre. But then we have the Megas, and I think I have to put Zard X in S tier and Yard in A tier. Now, Yard is my personal favorite. Charizard Y, that is. I think it is so fun. I love the sun boosted attacks, the drought boosted attacks. I think it's a really, really fun Pokemon. It's a little bit tough again. Still keeping that 4 times weakness to rocks really means we need to have a dedicated great spinner. You see a lot of Yard Sand builds in the past. With Excadrill as a great way of removing hazards. Really fun Pokemon. Hard to use, but really, really fun if you can find the opportunity to. But Zard X is incredible. I mean, whether it be like offensive DD sets or SD sets, or like really physically or especially defensive sets, Fire Dragon is a great typing defensively And offensively, Tough Claws makes this thing ridiculously strong. You roost up, you can Willow and be like fat DD mono attacking sets to be really good. It's an incredibly centralizing mon in the builder and in prep. So really great pick here. Love me some Zardex. I think it's really seen like big renaissance lately. So yeah, overall great Pokemon. I think I should mention Wartortle. I think it's like technically a draftable Pokemon at the bottom end of the board. It can spin, but it's a Wartortle, you know. I'm not gonna go super in depth. It's not bulky enough to really do its job well. It's not fast enough. It's not strong enough. It's a Wartortle, you know. It's kind of about it. Next up, we have Blastoise. I'm put Blastoise in B tier. Regular Blastoise, base Blastoise. Great Pokemon in Paldea deck right now. Absolutely love this guy. Between Rapid Spinning and Flip Turning, it did lose Scald, but obviously in that deck situations you can run Scald. Really just a solid, bulky water Rapid Spinner. Now, it does have the problem of really getting worn down really fast, which can be pretty obnoxious, but its natural bulk is great. Being a pure water typing is also great on top of that. Really solid jump on move pool, so great Pokemon. Now, the better version of it is Mega Blastoise. Now, I am talking about Mega Blastoise in the context of it not being able to use Shell Smash. This is an uber Pokemon. Typically though, in Natdex leagues now, from what I've seen, you'll see Mega Blastoise allowed with no Smash. That's great. Now, with that being said, it's just Blastoise, but better. It accentuates all of the great things. It has a great strong move pool that we can now take advantage of with a really freaking strong special attack stat. We have Mega Launcher obviously to boost our pulse moves, things like Water Pulse, Dark Pulse, things of the sort, which is great. And again, on top of 135 special attack, that's crazy. We're also incredibly bulky, 79 HP, 120 defense, and 115 speed def is great. 78 speed, we can rapid spin up also and be faster than a ton of things. This is actually one of my personal favorite megas to use. When I'm playing Oras, which is Gen 6 Draft League, this is actually usually like my default mega. I will wait to get a mega and I will get I'll get Gen 6 Mega Blastoise because it's such a reliable spinner in a metagame that really needs it. So really strong Pokemon overall. And again, without Smash, it's still incredibly solid in today's metagame nowadays. Now, we have Butterfree. Butterfree can always do some funny stuff, right? It can, like, Quiver Dance, Tinted Lens, it can, or not Tinted Lens, Compound Sleep Powder, sorry, I'm thinking of the wrong bug. Pretty terrible Pokemon overall, but, again, it is technically draftable. This Pokemon is not regular Beedrill. It's not regular draftable. I would rather you pick up Wartortle. In fact, I'm going to show that. I'd rather you pick up Wartortle. I have no idea what you think you're going to do with Beedrill, but it's not going to be something good. I promise you that. It's not going to be something good. There's a lot of Megas we can go over today, which is really cool, but yeah, I'm definitely not a regular base Beedrill guy. Mega Beedrill, though, is a lot of fun. I think this is definitely a B tier Pokemon. We're going to go ahead and put it up here. Now, very one-dimensional, right? U-turn, knockoff, poison jab, fourth. Maybe drill run, maybe random SD, maybe random T-spike, something of the sorts. You're clicking adaptability U-turns with a crazy base speed stat and getting on out of there. It's a great facilitator of offense. It's great on Volt Turn cores. I've seen like some really fun Coco Beedrill teams in the past, which could be really cool. Just kind of U-turn, Volt Switch, U-turn, Volt Switch, U-turn, Volt Switch, and really keep pressure. Again, you want good hazard removal with this guy so that you can use it to its strength and U-turn, 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 U-turn. And if you can do that, it's a really fun mid-tier mega to use, so definitely really solid. Next up is Pidgeot. I'll keep it a stack with you, man. I mean, it's probably better than Beedrill. I have never seen a regular Pidgeot drafted in my life. I have absolutely never seen this guy drafted, so we're not going to pretend like he's good. We're just going to put it in D tier and move on to the next. There's plenty of Pokemon to talk about today. However, Mega Beedrill, or Mega Pidgeot. Dude, look at A tier is just Megas right now. Mega Pidgeot is a lot of fun. We talked about Yard Sand, but a really common archetype is Mega Pidge Sand with Excadrill. Again, a great spinner. This Pokemon really smokes through a lot of Sand's, common checks and counters. Really strong Pokemon. Again, grabs great momentum. Not being able to miss your Hurricane is such a valuable tool for a Pokemon, too. Especially for a strong, especially offensive flying type. Having No Guard is so strong. And even not missing Heat Wave is really valuable, too. So I'm definitely big on Pidgeot. I think it's a great Pokemon overall, and definitely deserves an A tier slot here. I kind of like the other guys a little bit more personally, but I think they're all interchangeable right here, so definitely a really solid Pokemon. I feel like Generation 1 is really weird in the sense that the Pokemon are either incredible and very solid, or they're terrible. I mean, look at this. I could very viably put Charizard in D tier, and there's a huge gap between this C and this B right now, and I feel like this is going to be even more prevalent when we look at these next two guys, and Eradicate, Alolan Eradicate. We're just going to talk about both of them at the same time. Alolan Eradicate is a better version of it because of the secondary stab typing, better move pool, just really that. But really, there's kind of weak, normal type early game mons that are, have some fun niche application. Maybe in like a low tier league, you could get away with them doing well. I've drafted Alolan Eradicate myself before as like, 1, 2, 3-point shitter, and it's actually done pretty darn well, I actually can't lie. So maybe that's your move, but definitely not a great Pokemon overall. Their stats just really let them down, and their typings also aren't great in normal and normal dark. It's a bit tough, definitely not getting much out of that, on top of just being kind of like a mediocre offensive Pokemon. On to Fearow. Fearow is definitely better than Pidgeot. I think it's actually better than like all of these guys. Now again, maybe less than Alolan Raticate. Again, just kind of mediocre early Gen 1 normal type. Doesn't really have a great purpose outside of doing a mediocre amount of damage sometimes, but not really. Again, not a Pokemon that's really worth drafting in my opinion. If Arbok, I think Arbok has to go in D tier as well. Again, has some cool tools. It's just the base stats really let it down. Offensive move pool is really cool. Support move pool is a little bit more tough. We have Coil. You know what? We're gonna move this to the C tier because, like, I think with like a low tier Terra format, like a Coil Scale Shot set could be cool. We've seen definitely some worse Pokemon absolutely pop off in this generation, so maybe Arbok is a little bit better than I'm giving it credit for. It can also Glare, which is always very valuable. We love the Snake Pokemon for that. No, decently solid. Pikachu. We're gonna put Pikachu in the probably top of D tier. Is it a gimmick? Yes. Is there matchups where Pikachu will pull up with a Light Ball, outspeed more than half of the team, and have a KO button? Yeah, there totally is. One of my favorite Draft League games ever was when Kurt played Liv in NCP last season, and Kurt brought like a sub-focus punch Pikachu into stall and absolutely rolled the stall team. It was like hard stall, absolutely rolled. It was one of my favorite things. I think it was so funny. So I think D tier is valid because it's not a good Pokemon. I'm not gonna lie and say it's good, but it has like niche application that you can use it for. Raichu, we're gonna put Raichu's in C and put Alolan Raichu a little bit better. It's just a better version of it. Has a better ability or better ceiling, I guess is a better way of saying it. Fast Electrics, Volt Switch, good coverage, like okay. Pokemon, again, they really kind of lack in damage department unless you're Alolan Raichu in terrain. Then sure, you can do something. You can nasty plot, but yeah, not great Pokemon overall, but they're definitely better than everything in D tier by a mile. So I think they deserve C tier. I think D tier is going to be reserved for like the worst of the worst because this is Gen 1 after all. Next up we have Sandslash and Alolan Sandslash. I'm actually going to put these guys a little bit higher than the Raichus. I actually really like these guys. Alolan Sandslash, again, in those low tier formats, it really does do well with Terra, alongside its Slush Rush ability, and Snow got a big buff this generation, obviously. Really upping the defense of those Ice-type Pokemon, which is really nice when you're a Pokemon that's 4 times weak to Mach Punch. So really, really cool. And the Sandslash is kind of like a definition of like a very budget ground. It's not going to do a great job a lot of the times. And there's going to be matches where you play Regieleki and your ground types of Sandslash, and you're like, shit, I lose. But it can spin, it can rock, it can spike, it can knock. So again, valuable, right? Now we've kind of reached the first hot take of the video for Mr. OG Albina, and I don't know if you guys are going to agree, because these are, especially you Draft League Zoomers who just started playing, but there's no universe in which I am not putting Nidoking and Nidoqueen in S tier. Now keep in mind, this does not mean I am saying Nidoking and Nidoqueen need to be 18 points in the draft board. Far from it. Where they're at 12, 13, 14 all the time is perfect, and that is why they're at S tier, because they're so good at what they do for their price point. Their typing is so great, their ability is so great, their breaking power is great. Nidoqueen can be incredibly fat, Nidoking can be decently fat, and they can both be really strong offensively, but Nidoking is just an absolute nuke. If you play this mon correctly and offensively enough, you are going to do some freaking damage. I absolutely love Nidoking. Nidoqueen is also an absolute favorite of mine. These are like perfect Draft League Pokemon in my opinion. They're so good in the lead slot, they're so good as a mid-game breaker, and they're even decent Scarfers, so I think they deserve to be S tier for sure. Next up we have Clefairy. Clefairy's going to go at the bottom of C. I think it is viable as a low tier fairy if you just like don't have the ability to get anything better, but I'm not going to, again, pretend like it's good. But we'll put it in C, and we're not going to talk about it too much because Clef is going in S tier. Clef has to go in S tier. I think this is a certified Draft League GOAT. Maybe it's seen a bit of a fall off in this generation, for sure, just because of how offensive it is, the power creep, and losing some moves like Soft Boil that had 16 PP, as well as Toxic and things like that, but still a great Pokemon. Magic Guard and Unaware, two of the best abilities in the game and in the format for sure. Incredible offensive and defensive move pool. We can knock in T-Wave and Rocks, or we can Call Mind Up and win. We go Magic Guard, Life Guard, or Life Orb, or we can just go like, Leftovers, I'm a douche. We can pass wishes, and in the past, you could even be a cleric with it. So, overall, just a very, very good Jack of all trades Pokemon. While it's not as great this generation, I think it deserves to be S tier because of its pedigree and draft in general. And that's kind of how I want to do these rankings. Is like, how good are these Pokemon in Draft League all the time? So, yeah. Next up, we have Ninetales and Alolan Ninetales. Both these Pokemon are going in B tier. I'm going to put Alolan Ninetales a little bit higher because the Veil offense can be very overwhelming, especially in Generation. I think it's kind of built for Alolan Ninetales, and it became very, very physically defensive once the Snow buff came into play. So that's obviously really cool. Sets up Veil for your team and really, really allows, hyper offense builds do damage. But we also have Ninetales, who saw a big come up this generation. I think it's debatably better than Torkoal as a Sunsetter in this generation because it's faster, it's stronger, it has Healing Wish, it has Baton Pass now as well, which is a really cool option to get into use Momentum to get into other breakers. And it's overall just a little bit stronger of a Pokemon and a little bit faster, so it kind of does what it needs to a little bit better than Torkoal, where Torkoal's a little slower. And I wouldn't say passive in the sense of like things are subbing on it, but I feel like Ninetales can exert a little bit more pressure in general. At least in my opinion. I don't know. I could be driven. Next up, we have Big Wiggles. I have to put Wigglytuff in D tier. Now, is it a draftable Pokemon? For sure. I've seen plenty of Wigglytuffs drafted, and I think I've drafted Wigglytuff myself. It just really lacks in the stat department. Outside of the HP, it's pretty terrible, but its move pool is great. Competitive's a cool ability. It's a good rocker. Wishes. Its stats really suck. Its stats really, really suck, so there's something to keep in mind. We have Golbat, no Crobat, unfortunately, because we're not on that list. So, again, we can just talk about Golbat. Golbat's going to go at the bottom of C as well. I'm never huge on Golbat. I know back in the day, there was, Golbat was a very popular Pokemon back in Generation 7. At least, my own personal knowledge, Back when I played in Gen 7, I feel like I saw a lot of Golbats. I don't see as many Golbats anymore, but regardless, it's still very bulky with an Eviolite. It defogged, it U-turned, and it was, generally a big nuisance. It could Super Fang to keep things slow, or it could just Brave Bird. Excuse me. But overall, decently solid Pokemon. Not my favorite, but not the worst. Gloom is actually surprisingly viable. Again, a little bit worse than Clefairy in my opinion, but better than the other poison type Benefi that we just talked about. Mainly because of Strength Trap and Effect Spore. This becomes an incredibly potent, physically defensive check to a lot of Pokemon with the combination of Eviolite, Effect Spore, Sleep Powder, Strength Sap, all of those things. Can be really obnoxious for a lot of teams to take down. It can be really annoying to pivot around, especially for the price point that it's at. It's pretty darn valuable, I would say. I don't know. I really like Gloom. It's definitely caused some problems. I also know there's that fun Gloom VGC team, which is pretty funny, but yeah, overall a really, really solid Pokemon, for its price point, at the very least. Then we have Big Vileplume. I'm going to go ahead and put Vileplume probably above both these guys. I like Vileplume a lot. Now, one of my favorite games ever was me beating someone reverse 1-4 with just having a Vileplume spamming Strength Sap in Generation 7. One of my favorite videos on the channel, especially because the guy we beat. But really, really, really funny mod. I think there is fun, chlorophyll stuff you can do. I know Amel in Goons Gen 7 League recently, when he was playing Kurt, he saw Kurt didn't have a grass resist, so he brought Sunny Day Furfrou and then went into Specs Vileplume and killed 4 Mons. It was crazy. So definitely a really, really cool mod. Definitely versatile in the sense that you can go offensive with Chlorophyll, but you can also just be the annoying Effect Spore, defensive, Strength Up kind of douchebag that you are. So definitely a fun one. Parasect, it can Spore. That's it. It is a Parasect. It's going to go down here in D tier. It can Spore. It's immune to water, but its stats are terrible and it's pretty terrible. So again, we're never going to pretend like it's good. It's just not going to happen. Next up though, where are we at? Venomoth. I think Venomoth deserves a low B ranking. Mainly because I think it can be very Mickey in a lot of matches where you just set up Sleep Powder, Quiver Dance, Tits and Leads through everything. Goodness gracious. But with Terra, it's an absolute demon. Very, very strong Pokemon with the Terra option. Again, Tinted Lens is one of the best abilities in the game. We go to a Pokemon that can Quiver Dance up. It's going to be pretty threatening regardless of how we want to look at it. So definitely a really solid mod. Next, we're gonna do a little double time here. We're going to go Dugtrio in F, or in D, and we're probably going to put Dugtrio in low A. I'm a big Dougie fan. Maybe not as much as Generation again, because it's a little bit weak. But the concept of Arena Trap is really solid, right? It's not broken like it is in a Smogon setting or anything of the sort, because it's coming. But 1, it forces crazy prep. 2, it's very fast, so it can get up, at least emergency rocks or a final gambit to reset tempo. Or upside, especially for the, cheaper pricings, you can just completely trap something and kill it. which is great for setting up endgames. Also, forcing shed shells is great for setting up endgames. Maybe my opponent really wanted to be resist berry, leftovers, blah, blah, blah. And if they're not shed shell, they're not going to be able to avoid getting trapped by Dugtrio. So, always going to be a very valuable mon for that reason alone, in my opinion. Next up, we have Persian. Persian cannot go anywhere other than, like, maybe right here, because, like, fake out Last Resort with Terra Normal is pretty funny. But that's about it. Alolan Persian, though, is definitely a very solid Pokemon. I think it's definitely going to go up here in B tier. I enjoy this guy a lot. I think it parting shots around. It's very physically defensive with its fur coat ability. It can taunt, it can knock, it can just be a big nuisance and really facilitate. I'm sorry, guys. Really facilitate the rest of its team incredibly well. Next up, we have Big Golduck. Golduck's also going to go down here in D tier. I'm sorry, I'm not going to pretend. Again, we're not going to pretend like Golduck's good. Maybe Amel brought the physically defensive Cloud9 set, and that was cool. But other than that, it is still a Golduck, and we're not going to pretend like Golduck is a real Pokemon. I'm sorry, Amel, it's not happening. Primeape definitely saw a decent buff this generation. I don't think I would ever still put it... no, we'll put it in bottom of C. Like, bulk up Rage Fist sets are definitely really cool on a Pokemon with Eeveelutions. It's, like, effectively insanely bulky. Obviously, it's no Annihilate, but it is still a pretty fun Pokemon regardless. Next up, we're onto the Arcanines in both Hisui and regular Arcanine. I think these guys are definitely worth an A tier slot. We're going to put regular Arcanine a little bit higher. I don't know. So, I think objectively, maybe regular Arcanine's a little bit better, right? Defensively, it's been a staple for so many generations, even back in the days for Fire, Water, Grass Core. This is the fire type you thought of when you thought of that, very old core. Now, I'm not saying that you should draft Fire, Water, Grass Cores. Please don't. But regardless, very iconic Pokemon, very solid defensively, and has a couple matches where offensively can pop off. Hisui and Arcanine is just the offensive version of Arcanine. He's just a psycho. He clicks Head Smash and Flare Blitz and E-Speed, and that's about it. I used Terra, Hisui, and Arcanine in the league once that I won the championship of, and I absolutely loved it, so I'm personally going to put it higher. I really do enjoy it. They're both very solid for different reasons. Both can be offensive or defensive, but they kind of lean one way. Regular Arcanine more defensive, Hisui and Arcanine more offensive, but both are very strong Pokemon regardless. Poliwrath, the low tier GOAT. This guy's going in C tier for sure. I actually really like this mon. Whether it be like, for fun, like Swift Swim sets, Belly Drum sets, things like that, or like, physically defensive variants of the Breast Tongue, or especially defensive Assault Vest variants can definitely be very, very solid in a lot of instances and be a really annoying low tier Pokemon. And in low tier draft in particular, like, when like LTM, P4G kind of thing, incredibly solid water type and checks a lot of the meta very, very well. Next up is Big Zammer. I actually really enjoy Big Zammer. I'm gonna go ahead and put it in B tier. I don't think it is like, I don't think I can in good conscience call it better than Mega Beedrill as like fast, frail attacker. It can run the sash sets, which I think are very valuable in their own right. I really do like the sash sets a lot. But overall, it's weaker, it's slower, so it's going to be a little bit more tough, but really fun Pokemon to build with. And Life Orb sets hit like a freaking truck. They hit like an absolute truck. So, really cool mon. I'm going to put Megazam in S tier. There are some leagues that allow Megazam. Now, I don't want to put it here because I think it is a crazy thing to ever allow Mega Alakazam in any kind of format in modern day. Even in Generation 7, we used to allow it. Retroactively, USM leagues and tournaments are banning Megazam because it is absolutely broken, really fast, really strong, can run really bulky sets. Acid Armor and Calm Mind sets are great. You can Nasty Plot now too. You have reliable recovery, and you have every move that you need within Psychic, Shadow Ball, Focus Blast, and Knock Off for utility. Like, you have everything you need. There's nothing that you don't hit. There's absolutely nothing that you don't hit very hard, so... Overall, really broken Pokemon. We're gonna put an S tier. Don't allow it. Alright? Please, I'm asking you very nicely. Oh, Kadabra. I should probably mention Kadabra. I think Kadabra is draftable. We'll put it in C tier. 105, decently strong, still can do like the Focus Ash kind of stuff, so. He's draftable. We'll put him there. Machoke is not. Machamp is a really fun mon. I'm going to put Machamp here at the top as C tier. Don't think it's objectively like very good. But gut sets are strong. It's worse Conkeldurr, right? It's worse Conkeldurr. I really want this guy to get Drain Punch at some point in like a mainline game. I know it did in Legends Arceus, but it hasn't in like a mainline Pokemon game yet. So I'd love to see that. Again, it's to be seen if that ever happens. Pokemon doesn't like to say super consistent with their rulings and decisions, but again, what can you do? we can just hope, I guess, is all we can do. But still, really fun mon. Really fun mon. I also really love an ADV. I had a ton of fun with that in Emerald Open. Victory Bell. Victory Bell is like better Sunsweeper than Vileplume, but worse Pokemon than Vileplume is how I see it. I like Vileplume defensively. Victreebel is really strong offensively, solid core Chlorophyll Sweeper, but again, like, this is the same generation where we have like another Grass Poison Chlorophyllmon, and then another one on top of that. Venusaur is better than all of them, so it's just gonna kind of be overshadowed. You're not gonna see them drafted a lot, because very often if you're drafting Sun plus a Grass-type Chlorophyll guy, it's probably Venusaur, because Venusaur isn't really getting drafted otherwise. So while I do think these Pokemon have potential, I don't think that you're going to see them very often, so they're gonna stay here in C tier. They could be better, but who knows, right? Who freaking knows? But yeah. Next up, where are we at? Oh, we're a big Tentacool. So this is a former BBR champion this season. I actually really like this guy. I like him more than Blastoise this generation, personally. I love the speed tier is the main reason, right? Really, really reliable spins. We can still flip, turn around. We spread poisons with Sludge Bomb, Toxic, and T-Spikes. We knock items off, which is very valuable. Overall, just an incredible Pokemon. We can Haze or Clear Smog away stat boost, which is also great as well. Great utility. Not the strongest, not the bulkiest, but it's decently fast, and it does its job. It's very specially defensive, too, which is really cool. So, yeah, definitely a really solid Pokemon. I love Tentacool. I think it's really good. Next up, we have the Golems. Both of them are going in D tier. This one goes here, and this one goes, or it's not going to go there. It's going to go like there. And then Alolan Golem's going to go a little bit higher. We're going to put it right here. Just because it does have that small, oh, I'm sorry, I'm not even showing you guys. Just because it does have that small niche of being able to be, what do you call it? Magnet Pull and Trap and Steel types. There's been times where I've drafted a Alolan Golem and I've run Scarf, Trap, Sail, Steels, and hit them really hard with Wild Charge. Still not kill them because you're a Golem, but there is value that you can get out of this guy. So I think he deserves to be a little bit higher. In D tier, he is at least somewhat draftable in some scenarios, sometimes. Alright, both Rapidashes, I think these are also both going in D tier. Both of these Pokemon suck really bad. Alolan or Galarian Rapidash is terrible. Certified Cheeks, not a good Pokemon. But Cantonian is okay, just because the fire typing is strong offensively, it has a good move pool, and it's decently fast, so can't get too upset with it there. Definitely an okay-ish Pokemon. Now we're on to some bangers. The Slowbro trio. There's so many Mons in the slow line. It's absolutely insane. Because there's still Slowking and Galarian Slowking that aren't on this list, right? Just not on this list. But let's go ahead. Sorry, I was reading a message on the side. We have Slowbro, the GOAT. We're going to go ahead and put this guy up here in A tier. I absolutely love Slowbro. I think it's an incredible Pokemon. Maybe not in Generation 9 again, but if we're looking at over the course of Draft League, like in general, such a reliable Pokemon. We Scald, we Teleport out in Generation 8. I mean, Gen 8 Slowbro was a different beast. You did not kill that guy if you had physical attackers trying to attack it. And I'm just teleporting out before your special attackers come in. Or I'm switching out and getting back in with Regenerator, the best ability in the game. I think it's also worth putting Mega Slowbro up here, one behind. Very often you'll see Mega Slowbro drafted and never Mega, right? Because we want to keep regen, we want to pivot out in and out. But once we want to get that big boost to our defenses, we will go ahead and Mega Evolve, become incredibly bulky, and also uncrittable, which is really good on a fat setup mon like Slowbro. So definitely a really solid Pokemon in that regard. Definitely really annoying. And then Galarian Slowbro. I'm using this guy right now. I think he's worth a B tier pick, in my opinion. I think about right here is about perfect. Again, regen is the best ability in the game. So we have to give shout-outs for that, obviously. Great move pool. Really solid with Assault Vest. Can be really annoying with setup. And even quick draw shenanigans if you're feeling extra lucky and crazy. So definitely a really funny mon. Farfetch, you're going to put an F tier. I'm sorry, guys. Farfetch is going in F tier. We have to mention Big Magneton. I think it's probably better than these guys. I'm not big on Magneton, right? It's kind of just, I guess it's a better Scarfer than Magneton since it's faster. It does get that Magnet Pull niche, which is pretty cool. Not a lot of Steel types that it really traps, though, or ones that wouldn't run Shed Shell for it anyways. But a cool option. We can also run things like Sturdy and put ourselves in a good position in that regard. Always leaving a hit, which can be cool. I know Tom was using this thing pretty well for a little bit before he dropped it in LTM, so there's definitely merit to it. Dugtrio, we're going to put in C tier. I think this guy is way more draftable than any of the other normal flyings in this generation. Very, very strong low-key, right? 110 speed is really solid. Decent move pool. Pretty fun little mon. I also really love Dugtrio. It's one of my favorite designs in Gen 1, so of course I'm going to give him a little bit of love here in this section. I definitely really enjoy that guy, so big shouts to Dugtrio. from Dugtrio to the next, which will be, oh my gosh, I'm losing everything, Big Dugong. Now, has Dugong seen a come up this generation? For sure. Is it good? No. I mean, the answer is no. I mean, he can do some cool stuff. He can flip turn, he can whirlpool, like, Paratrap stuff. But again, the stats, the typing, Water Ice's ass, the stats are all very, very brutal. So I cannot pretend like Dugong is good and good content, despite him being a little bit better this generation. Next up, we have Muck and Alolan Muk. Both of these guys are going to go pretty high, to be honest. Now, this might be a crazy take, because we're going to put both Mucks in B tier. Now, Alolan Muk is obviously much, much better as a Pokemon. Much, much better. Poison Dark is great, 2 great abilities, and Gluttony and Poison Touch. It can be really annoying, set up with Curse and win the game that way, but regular Muck has seen a big come up this generation, especially recently. If you look at a lot of the top end of the board, Muck deals with a lot of them very well. It's also a great Valiant check for very, very cheap. Very, very cheap. I've seen it used very well in a bunch of different places, whether it be Amon Tour settings. I know Aster had it in BBR when he made it to finals against me, and he actually ended up bringing it to finals. It can be a really, really annoying Pokemon, sets up T-Spikes, and it can knock off now, which is a big, big buff to Muck. So I think for its price point, like 2-3 points, wherever it's going to be at, it's one of the best Pokemon you can pick up at that pricing. So big shouts to that guy. Next up, we have Cloyster. Cloyster's actually going to move down. If this was in the past, I would have put this guy in B, but I think no spin Cloyster is terrible. Now, I remember when Cloyster dropped in the game, we saw it didn't have spin. We were like, that's weird. Oh, it's because it was an egg move that it got from breeding with Tentacruel. Oh, man. Tentacruel came back, and we were like, let's go. Cloyster's getting spin back. They didn't give it back. They just eliminated spin from Cloyster's move pool. So if you're upset with Cloyster being bad, yell at Game Freak. Because it doesn't make any sense why they did it, but they did do it, and Cloyster is pretty average now. All it can really do is function in the offensive Shell Smash role, which is decent. It can definitely do so decently well. It can also spike, but again, typing's bad, stats are bad. Very, very lopsided Pokemon, having a lot of defense and not a lot of everything else. So because of that, it's kind of mediocre. So yeah. Next up, we have Haunter. I'm going to put Haunter in C tier, honestly, around where these guys are. Again, Hitmon with solid actual like base speed, and really strong, a lot stronger than something like a Kadabra in my opinion, just because of its stab typings and its coverage, but slower, so a little bit worse in that regard, but definitely a Pokemon I've seen do well before. Gengar, my goat has to go in A tier, right? My goat has to go in A tier. I love Gengar. It might be just me in this. I didn't use him a lot in the BBR Championship season, but in general, I draft Gengar a lot. I spam Gengar a lot. It's one of my like highest kill leaders in draft league history for me. Like it gets very, very much so up there very, very quickly. I really do enjoy this Pokemon a lot. Incredibly strong, decently fast, great Scarfer as well. Incredible Scarfer. Trick and Destiny Mod is great utility options. They can Thunder Wave and Will-O-Wisp as well, and Toxic, so we can get a bunch of different statuses off. Again, just a very solid Pokemon overall. I love Gengar. I'll ride or die for Gengar, even if he's not as universally loved this generation as he has been in the past. Next up, we got some shitters upcoming, guys. I'm sorry. We have Hypno. Hypno is probably going to go in the bottom of C, just because in the past I know it's used as like a decent low tier Wishmon, and Seismic Toss and things like that. So like for its point value, it wasn't terrible, but bottom of C. Compared to like Pikachu and stuff, it's probably better. Again, Gen 1 is weird because the bad Mons are really, really bad, right? They're pretty freaking terrible. Kingler, I gotta put Kingler in D tier. As much as I like Kingler, because I think he is funny, there's no way in good conscience I could put this thing above D tier. Now, when we did do tier 5 Dynamax and GDL that one time at the beginning of the generation, I did get 32 kills with Kingler in 8 games. So there is that. He's the GOAT for that one. We lost in finals, unfortunately, but again, great Pokemon, popped off there. But any Pokemon's better when you double their HP and make them ungodly strong for 3 turns. So I guess it's a way of putting it. Next up, we have the Trodes, and I gotta put both these guys in B tier. Now, again, might seem really high for regular Electrode. Hisui Electrode with Terra has been an absolute menace, right? Electric Grass is a great typing, especially when you can turn it into an Ice or a Fairy type as well and give it that extra coverage and make it a really big nuisance. They're both very fast, but again, I think Electrode is one of the better low point Pokemon you can get. Like those really low, like Muck End kind of value guys. Like this guy. This guy's gonna go up a little bit. He's probably gonna go right here. Yeah. Oops. I'm probably gonna move this guy down. But sorry, back to regular Electrode. For its price point, 150 base speed, boom, taunt, T-Wave, and a solid flying resist. Again, also the static and the aftermath aspect. I think it's a really fun mon. It can check mons like Torn decently well. It's very fast, and it forces a lot of very specific prep. And if your opponent disrespects you, doesn't bring their ground, you get really fast volts off for free. Always, which is great, just like Electrod Hisui, but you kind of do that because you're grass typing with Electrod Hisui. But regardless, I think it's a really solid Pokemon, very slept on. Executor, I'm going to put it in C tier, not because I think it's good, but because A12 killed my Rillaboom with a Leaf Storm when he brought Specs, so I can't disrespect in that regard, right? And then we'll put Alolan Executor because it can Trick Room, it has a better typing, and is pretty darn strong. You know, it's still not great, still very slow, still very exploitable, but decent enough Pokemon. Strong Marowak, we're going to put Marowak in C tier, but Alolan Marowak, which is just Marowak but better, will go in B tier when I find where he went. Where'd you go, fella? There you went. So we're going to go ahead and put this guy in B tier. I think Alolan Marowak is actually a lot of fun. It's a very hard Pokemon to fit on a team, right? Just because of the fact that you're always item locked into a thick club. So that means that we're not getting, heavy duty boots on and avoiding rocks and things like that. So you have to like do a lot of work to make a Pokemon like this work because it's also very slow. So we want to either bring it into fat teams or maybe have a Trick Room aspect into it. But if you get this thing in for free and you can click an attack without being worried about getting knocked off, you are going to kill something. Nothing switches into this Ghost Fire type, with, great coverage with, like, EQ and things like that. One of my favorite Pokemon. I love using this thing in draft when you can. Or one of my favorite, like, niche Pokemon that, like, is really hard to fit, but when you do, you, like, rub your hands together. She's like, oh, this guy's sick. I really like Alolan Marowak. A really hard mon to draft, but if you can, it's a lot of fun for sure. Alright, next up, we have the Hitmons. I'm going to put both of these guys in C tier. Now, it's a matter of where. I think they definitely go higher up. I think Hitmonlee actually will go up to B tier, and we'll put Hitmonchan in C tier. Hitmonchan, we'll talk about that guy first. I think it's definitely better than Machamp. Again, solid Rapid Spinner, Mach Punch, Iron Fist. Again, the stats are just lacking. That's a lot of these guys in general now, with just general power creep, is their stats are lacking compared to a lot of the Pokemon that they have to typically go up against. But its move pool, its stats are great. It's not its move pool. Its move pool is great. It's, ability for it as well, and Iron Fist is great. We can run with cool bulk up variants. It got knock off this generation, which is also a very big tool for it. Hitmonlee, I think is a little bit better. While they still have like very similar, they have like the same stat total pretty much. The reason I think that Hitmonlee is better is because Hitmonlee can function as that Unburdened Sweeper, and is actually a prime Terra candidate because of Unburden, setting up, being faster than everybody, and then kind of winning the game, the end game, with things. Range of you once you set up and things of the sort. So, like a diet Hawlucha, like a really shitty Hawlucha. So, I think he deserves a little bit of acknowledgement for that alone, if nothing else. Next up, we have Weezing and Galarian Weezing. I'm gonna put both of these guys in B tier. I don't know where yet. I'm just moving them up there so we can look at it and kind of, that's not where you wanted to go, right here. Okay, cool. I think I'm actually going to put these guys decently freaking high up here. I love both of these mons. Well, I love Weezing. I'm not big on Galarian Weezing. I understand the merit. I think it is better defensively, but it's a little bit more expensive for my liking, and I kind of like the pure poison typing on all the teams I draft, and I typically prefer different fairies not named Weezing because it loses to every dragon, so it's not a great fairy, but they're both great poison types, right? Neutralizing gas is an incredible ability in draft. Like, being able to nullify your opponent's ability is very, very valuable, incredibly valuable in a lot of instances, and being a poison type with Levitate is also incredible. You can T-Spike, you can Haze, you can Boom if you need to, you're gonna Willow, you're gonna be a nuisance, and it's honestly a really annoying Pokemon to switch into. Anything with like Poison Fire is gonna be really obnoxious, and Sludge Bomb plus Flamethrower is always going to be an option on both of these guys there. Or on Weezing, sorry. I think Galar only gets Overheat, so something to keep in mind. But yeah, definitely an okay-ish Pokemon. Alright, we're going to get kind of into a blitz here with these next ones. There is a ton of single-stage Pokemon at the end of the Kanto Pokedex. But really quick, we do have an NFE. A Pokemon that was, fully evolved in Generation 1, though, and Rhydon. I think Rhydon's got to go up here in C tier, right? Incredibly reliable rocker for his price point, and very good Terramon. In a lot of leagues where you get 2 Terra captains, and Rhydon is able to be one of them, which typically it will be with getting a high tier Terra afterwards. It's really annoying. Solid Rock is a great, Lightning Rod is a great ability with Terra, allowing you to go like Terra Flying, Terra Grass, or Water even, things of the sort, be immune to Electric, as well as be really strong and really bulky with an Eeveelution. You can set a Rock Polish and a Sword Stance. You can just be a Stealth Rock 3 attacker, which is what it's going to do in most matchups, and be a really strong and annoying Pokemon. Chansey sucks ass. I'm not going to pretend like Chansey's good. We'll put it at the top of D tier. People are going to yell at me in the comments, Chansey is a good specially defensive wall. No, it's not. Don't lie to yourself. Next, we have Big Tangela, another NFE Pokemon. I think putting Tangela above Gloom, I think even more than that. I think it deserves to be pretty freaking high on this list. Now, obviously, it's not in the game right now, but Sleep Powder, Regenerator, being Eeveelite, and incredibly bulky. If you can avoid knockoffs and special attackers, you're going to be a great physically defensive check for a low point Pokemon. And I think that's always going to be very valuable. You also can knock things off and be a nuisance in that regard. So, big ups to the little guy. Next up, we have Kangaskhan. Kangaskhan's going to definitely go up here in C tier. I think right behind Hitmon. Maybe right in front of Hitmonchan. Versatile, bulky, normal, wishes is a big nuisance in that regard. Good, what do you call it? Ghost check, and especially having, Scrappy being able to hit them is always going to be a very nice thing. So, definitely a solid Pokemon for sure. And then Mega Kangaskhan. Mega Kangaskhan is going to go up here in A tier. Probably about right here. Now, a lot of times people will be like, damn, I remember back in the day when Mega Kangaskhan was banned, blah, blah, Mega Kangaskhan was considered one of the best Megas. It's not. Now, typically, Saxon Tox is going to be banned on this thing because it's really, really nice with Parental Bond. But outside of that, a lot of time I think people think of Kang and they think of, like, the power-up punch sets. And you're either in the boat of, like, this guy's broken, he gets +2, he gets a sword stance that does damage, and then he just breaks through everything. Or you're in the boat that you're like, just throw a Rocky Helmet on some shit and it's going to die. Both are true. I actually like Kangaskhan for the opposite reason. I like Kangaskhan for the fact, or Mega Kang, for the fact that it's incredibly bulky, and wish sets are going to be incredibly obnoxious. I think this Pokemon is really, really good in the right hands, on the right balanced build. I drafted a lot in Generation 8 and 7, and I think it's a Pokemon you should definitely give a shot if you don't think it's very good, because I think it's very slept on for sure. At least, in my opinion. I don't know. I could be tripping. Next up, I didn't even want to talk about it. We have Seeking. I guess I'm going to put Seeking in D. Like, what does Seeking do? I don't know. He has Swift Swim, so I guess that makes him better than Kingler? Question mark? Go Seeking? Question mark? Starmie. Go away, Drowsy. Starmie is definitely going to go up here in A tier. This is another really, really fun Pokemon that I personally really enjoy. I'm going to go ahead and put in A tier, especially back in Generation 6. It's a staple. It's drafted a lot. Generation 7 a little bit less so. Generation 8 saw a little bit of versatility. I really loved offensive Meteor Beam Starmie a lot in Gen 8. I draft this thing all the time, but it's a very fast spinner. It can be very defensive with Natural Cure and kind of be a status absorber. And you can usually invest pretty heavily in your defenses because you are such a fast Pokemon naturally. Or you can be offensive with Analytic and really punish switch-ins and be Meteor Beam and things like that. But you're always going to be a good Rapid Spinner regardless of the role that you take. And you're always just going to be a very fun Pokemon to use. I love Starmie. I think it's great. Next up, we have the Mimes. The Mimes are going to go in D tier. I don't even know what these guys really do, to be honest. I'm just going to go ahead and put them here. I think Mr. Mime Galar has that, like, screen cleaner ability, but this one, and it can hold an Eeveeluite, but this one is, like, not an ice type, so I think they kind of even each other out in the sense that they're both terrible, and have slightly better qualities than the other, so. Yeah, go them. Scyther definitely deserves a C tier, right? Decently strong Pokemon. I think with Terra, this guy could be really, really cool. Just you turning around, throwing off strong dual wing beats. I think Pounce is a new bug type move that's like Technician boosted, but you also have Bug Bite, which is probably better. You have SD, you also have Quick Attack, so like Terra Normal sets can be actually really cool, like a pseudo Dragonite type guy, or like Entei type guy in Terra Normal E-Speed. You have Terra Normal Technician Quick Attack. It's pretty funny, so definitely a pretty fun mon. Solid, strong. You are kind of boots locked a lot of the time now, but there are worse things in the world. We have Jinx. I think Jinx is actually pretty slept on. I think this is a fun mon. Dry Skin giving it an immunity is always going to be a fun thing. Decent speed tier, and it has a really solid sleep move, which is always going to be solid as well. I'm going to put it right here above Magaton. Hard to draft, but if you can find the opportunity to, it's not the worst thing in the world. Electrod is also going to go up here in C tier. I think it's going to go around this Raichu area, right in the middle of these guys. Again, with an Eeveeluite and Static, it can be really annoying. We spread knockoffs. We can even get up screens, I believe. And it's a decently fast Pokemon, too. Solid speed tier for, what it is. So, and big ups to E-Buzz for that one. Then we have Magmar. And while he is the VGC GOAT, the undefeated in VGC, he is not good in singles, and I'm not going to pretend like he's good in singles. We're going to go ahead and put this guy here, probably behind the Rapidash, or probably behind this guy. There we go. Again, defensive fire type that wants to hold an Eeveeluite instead of boots is always going to be tough. You're going to take a lot from rocks, and fire isn't like necessarily known for being the best defensive type ever, right? It's definitely not bad, but not the best. However, in VGC, undefeated. That guy's the GOAT. Undefeated. we have Pinsir here. I guess Pinsir can go at the bottom of C tier. I don't think it's as bad as these guys, but it's definitely not great. You can Moxie Sweep, I guess, but not really because your stats suck. Mega Pinsir is definitely a really fun one. We're going to go ahead and put this guy in B tier right here. And again, definitely saw a nerf in the 8 abilities being nerfed down, and Return being a cut move. But I guess if you're playing that deck, so you can definitely run Return. And it's a solid Pokemon, right? Again, a lot like Beedrill, but even more so in the sense that it's very high maintenance. We need to have good means of removal, so this guy can come in multiple times throughout the game and break for himself. But if we also find that opportunity to SD up, SD, Return, Quick Attack, and then either Close Combat or Earthquake, usually just smokes through pretty much every build ever. So if you get the sufficient chip, you're going to put yourself in a good spot. Big Tauros, another fun one. We don't have the Paldean guys. They would be a lot higher. This is so sad. Regular Tauros, though, I'm actually going to go ahead. Again, I'm going to put him in C tier. He's going to be at the top of C tier. I do enjoy this guy a lot. If you can afford to draft a fun, low-tier offensive normal, I think this is your guy. You can go like more defensive with Intimidate sets, but realistically, you're going to be Sheer Force, you're going to be clicking Body Slam and Close Combat and Earthquake, and even a random Fire Blast when you play Ferrothorn or something of sorts. And it's going to be, or an Ice Beam or a Blizzard when you're playing Gliscor Landorus or something like that. So, definitely a really fun mon. Big shouts to Tauros. I think he's a fun guy for sure. Definitely a cool sleeper pick. Then we have Gyarados. I think Gyarados definitely deserves a spot in B tier, probably behind the Weezings in terms of viability in the sense, because I think Gyarados is fun and good when you draft it, but it's like another Pokemon that seems very difficult to draft. So I think putting it any higher is a little bit tough and kind of hard to justify. But if you can find the opportunity to do so, or if your league is allowing Terra Gyarados, and it's like a low tier league, like let's say like GBU did, or like the Smogon tournaments did when Keegan got to use it both times. I mean, the Mons insane. Absolutely an insane Pokemon. Very bulky, very strong. Intim and Moxie. I mean, Gyarados is the GOAT. Tried and true. Again, when you think of like early draft league too, this is a very, very popular mon. Speaking of so, also Mega Gyarados. Another really, really fun Pokemon. I'm going to go ahead and put this guy up here in A tier. I think I'd be crazy to not do so. I think this Pokemon is incredibly strong. Again, you start pre-Mega, right? So you start with Intim, you start with a Ground Immunity, and then we Mega Indoor typing. We gain Mold Break, which is solid ability. We gain better than Umbreon Bulk, and we can Dragon Dance and Taunt and just absolutely smoke through teams with Crunch, Waterfall, Earthquake, whatever you need. Really, that's all you need in most matchups. You don't need anything else. There might be niche matchups where you go like a random coverage move, but realistically, you're going to run like Taunt, Dragon Dance 2 attacks, or just Dragon Dance 3 attacks every game, and you're going to thrive and prosper and absolutely smoke through your opponent. Next up, we have Big Lapras. I mean, again, another Pokemon we're just going to put in C tier, or in D tier. It's an Ice type, it's slow. It's like decently strong, it's decently bulky, but it's an Ice type and it's slow, so it's not going to be good. That's just how it goes. Unless your name's Calyrex Ice Rider. Then you'll be good, because it's good that you're slow. Alright, next up, we have the Trap of Ditto. I'm going to go ahead and put Ditto here in, I guess, the bottom of C tier. I actually really don't like Ditto. Don't fall for the trap of drafting Ditto because you're like, I don't know what else to get. So I'm going to get a Pokemon that counters my opponent's Pokemon by being those Pokemon. I think it's very often hard to bring and can put you in more spots than you would actually anticipate. Not a big Ditto guy. We do have the Eevees here. I'm going to rank them in terms of viability. First, we have Flareon, who sucks. It's going to be higher up here in D tier, in my opinion, because it's decently strong, but it's slow, it's a fire type, and it has a terrible move pool. Then, we have Jolteon going here in C tier. I think Jolteon can go probably back here. Now with Terra, it becomes immensely better. Very, very good. But without Terra, it's a terrible Pokemon. I think it's a D tier Pokemon. With Terra, I think it's a B tier Pokemon. So it's going to go right here in the middle of C. And I think these guys are better without Terra and also so good with Terra. So, I could be tripping, but who knows. And then we have Big Vaporeon. Vapor's going to go in B tier. Solid bulky water. Decently annoying Pokemon. It's going to go probably right about right here. It wishes, it flip turns, it scalds, it gets burned. And again, it's just a big nuisance overall. Lost Toxic and Heal Bell, which is kind of tough, but there's been worse things that have happened to Pokemon and they've survived. So, Porygon's going to go down here in D tier, but I would like to mention it at the very least because I do think it is viable in a small sense of like checking some offensive ghosts like Dragapult, but ghosts aren't as prevalent as they were last generation, this generation, so I'm not going to glaze it too hard. Omastar, really not the greatest Pokemon in the world. I think this guy probably deserves to be a little bit behind Poliwrath. I'd probably really have that, but we do have, like, you know, hazards out of it and a Swift Swim on. It's just stats are pretty bad, and being a rock type is always never super fun. Better Swift Swim user is going to be Kabutops, but worse Pokemon overall than Poliwrath, in my opinion, so I'll go right there. with Arrow and Mega Arrow. I think regular Arrow definitely belongs to be here in what do you call it, B tier, just because of its really strong speed tier, its ability to rock and taunt and be decently annoying and be decently strong. I used a lot of Aerodactyl in Generation 8 and I definitely really enjoyed it. Mega Arrow is a different story. This guy is going to go all the way up here in S tier, personally, for me. Now again, I think you could justifiably put it in A tier, but I absolutely love Mega Arrow. I think it is so strong, it's so fast, it's very bulky if you need it to be, and with you know, buffs in like Nat Dex, it can run like Dual Wing Beat and Dragon Dance, which is really cool. Finally giving it, like, you know, better flying stab, tough class flying stab. Just give this guy Brave Bird and Head Smash so he can prosper, and regular Arrow can also go up to A tier or S tier or something like that, so would be banger. Alright, we're almost there, guys. I'm saying this like I'm not talking to myself because I'm yawning like crazy. But we have Big Snorlax next. Big Snorlax is also going to go up here in A tier. I think I'd be pretty crazy to not go ahead and put this guy up here. Very, very solid Pokemon throughout every generation. Bulky Curse setup super with either Gluttony variants or like Rest Talk variants. You have Immunity and Thick Fat has great abilities, incredible coverage. Well, you could just be Assault Vest, you could just be physically defensive, especially defensive, you can whirlwind things around. You have so many tools in this Pokemon that make it so good. So definitely a big lax guy. We're gonna rank the birds in kind of a order, or kind of together, I guess. We're gonna go ahead and put Articuno probably down here at the bottom of D tier. It's probably gonna go around right here. Decent Spadef wise, but you're always insta-lock boots and your move pool is terrible. Then we have Galarian Articuno. It's going to go a little bit higher. It has cheesy setup options, but not the greatest bulk, and still not a great typing in Psychic and Flying. But you can do like cheesy setup stuff, which is cool. Then we have the Zapdos. We finally have another S tier. We're going to put Big Zapdos up here. Arguably one of the most reliable Draft League Pokemon of all time. Some people would consider it the GOAT in Draft League because of how good it has been reliably over every generation. U-turning and Volt switching around. Sometimes going offensive now with Thunderbolt Hurricane. I mean, you guys saw in BBR when I was playing Viz, he brought Specs against me twice because my team didn't have good Specs flying resist, and it really put in crazy work. But you can also just be physically defensive and roost and static and pressure stall things and just be a big nuisance overall. Such a great Pokemon. Now, Galarian Zapdos is still very good too, though. And I'd like to give him his flowers, and I think he definitely deserves an A tier pick. We're going to go ahead and put him right here because I do like these Pokemon ahead of it a little bit more, but definitely a ridiculously strong Pokemon. Having Scrappy being immune to, or having Defiant making it basically immune to Intim is incredible, actually giving it a boost. So you can't use, like, you know, Intim's way of slowing this thing down. Fighting Flying is an incredible stab combination. You're decently fast, you're very strong, you turn around, and it got knocked off this generation, which is a phenomenal tool for a Pokemon like this. Catching bulky Psychics on the switch-in. Big shouts to Gyarados. Incredible Pokemon. And then we have Moltres and Moltres Galar. I think both of these guys are also going to go in A tier, to be honest. I think I'm going to go ahead and put Moltres here. And I think Galarian Moltres is going to go a little bit higher, because Galarian Moltres has that Makey business, right? That Berserk plus Nasty Plot and Agility really lets you just sweep through teams. Dark Flying is an incredible stab combination. Moltres, regular Moltres, is great defensively. Fire Flying is a great typing defensively. We can run boots, and we are stun locked into boots pretty much forever. But again, is it the worst thing in the world? Not really, in my opinion. We can U-turn around, we can Hurricane, we can Flamethrower, we can Scorching Sands, we can even be physical sets with Brave Bird, Flare Blitz, because they do really well in certain matchup. It's overall a great Pokemon, great physical attacking deterrent. Anything that punishes Pokemon for clicking U-turn and knock off is always going to be nice. Or I guess mostly just U-turn, you don't want this thing to get knocked off, but similar to Zapdos in that regard, right? Then it looks like we have two more Pokemon. I have to put Dragonite in S tier. I have to put Dragonite in S tier. I think probably behind Zardex. I absolutely love this Pokemon. I think he's so much fun to use. Whether it be like Broken Terra Dragonite that was allowed for like a month when Scarlet and Violet dropped, where everybody was Terra Normal E-speeding, or Terra Watering, or Terra Stealing, and doing a bunch of fun things. Or whether it be more defensive variants that you saw in like Sword and Shield with Heavy Duty Boots and Roost and Toxic and Heal Bell and Air Slash and Thunder Wave and things like that. Multi-skill is such a good ability, and with this thing's move pool, bulk, and power from both sides, physical and special, it's always going to be a nuisance. And then do we want to put Mew in S tier to finish it off? Generation 9 Mew is not an S tier Pokemon. However, Mew in general, has been an S tier Pokemon across its Draft League career. In fact, I think I would move it up a little bit. I think its Generation 9 performance has been so poor, I have to keep it below Dragonite. If it had a better Generation 9 performance, it'd probably be a lot higher than a lot of these Pokemon. But Jack of all trades, master of none, setup sweeper, physical or special, physically defensive, specially defensive, hazard setter, screen setter, HO guy, even scarf sets are really fun. It really does kind of take the builder to get the most out of Mew, but if you do, you're always going to have a good time. And I think it's slept on Generation 9, to be fair. I want to try it. I want to try it maybe with like some kind of Terra. I think it could be fun. But yeah, that being said, that is it. We didn't rank the Mewtwo's because those guys are broken. I'm pretty sure we didn't miss anything. No, we should be good. Unless there's an NFE that you would die by. And if that's the case, let me know in the comments below. Let me know if you guys agree with our list. Let me know if you would have changed anything at all either, or as well. Thank you guys so much for watching. Again, we'll have Gen 2 go up next week, and I'll see y'all then. Later.